Some people learn from humiliation. Satya unfortunately learned confidence. After surviving the unforgettable ox disaster, public embarrassment, and years of villagers laughing at his revolutionary language, one might assume Satya had finally abandoned his dangerous ideas. But Satya was not a man defeated easily. No, no. If anything, failure had only convinced him that the world simply wasn't intelligent enough to understand him yet. And so, beneath the same old peepal tree, where many terrible ideas had previously taken birth, Satya returned once again. With a fresh dictionary, renewed confidence, and vocabulary capable of confusing humanity at an international level. So, without delay, let's begin the chapter 1. So, seated under the old peepal tree, our innocent, sweet Satya was completely lost in his own world. A world made of sounds, syllables, and spectacular nonsense. His well worn dictionary lay open on his lap, and a satisfied smile played on his lips. Another edition of Satya's language was complete, and this one, he felt, was particularly brilliant. From time to time, he tilted his head upward, as if the sky itself were his most patient student, and began practicing his freshly minted words aloud. Kukaboora, ulupulaha, afatari rasgulla gora, haya haya, he uttered lovingly, rolling each sound on his tongue like a secret melody. The peepal leaves rustled above, perhaps in agreement, perhaps in confusion, but Satya took it as applause. After all, when you invent a language, even the sky must eventually learn to listen. This new dictionary was just not the collection of words, but a latest upgraded edition of Satya's language, as he did not want to fail this time. He wanted the villagers to learn these new words more efficiently so that they are not confused at the time of energy crisis like before. This dictionary was complete in itself, such that children and every elder could read and cram the words more easily, as it was just a collection of nonsense words. No spelling, no rules, no meanings, and absolutely no responsibility. The children, however, looked at Satya and his language with pure amusement. They gathered around him not out of respect, but curiosity. Giggles bubbling in the corners of their mouth. They eagerly memorized his words, not to use them wisely, but to burst into laughter the moment they said them aloud. To them, Satya's language was not a solution to any crisis. It was the most entertaining joke the village had ever produced. And Satya, blissfully unaware, took their laughter as proof that his language was finally being understood. With this dictionary tightly tucked under his arm, Satya marched towards the podium, with all the confidence of a king returning from a conquest. A couple of children trailed behind him like his loyal subjects, following every step with exaggerated devotion, much like poor villagers chasing a mighty imaginary ruler, hoping for alms, blessings, or at the very least a good laugh. Satya lifted his chin, slowly his stride for dramatic effect, and mounted the podium as if ascending a throne, utterly convinced that wisdom, wealth, and linguistic greatness were about to rain down upon his kingdom. Clearing his throat importantly, Satya began reciting words from his dictionary, and the children obediently echoed him through each word was the first greeted by a sharp burst of giggles. Laughter arrived before pronunciation every single time, as if it were an essential rule of Satya's language. And his teaching lesson began with the word meanings. Babaya, meaning bye bye. Kukur, kukur, come here, come here. Rasagola gora, fair like rasgulla. Hamba, much taller. And right then, a bus roared in like an uninvited drum roll and screeched to a halt, throwing dust everywhere and stealing Satya's spotlight. From the cloud emerged a very tall, fair-skinned foreigner, glowing in the sunlight like someone who had accidentally wandered into the wrong movie. His skin was so white that several villagers squinted. One auntie whispered, "Is he real?" And a child briefly checked the sky to see if it was raining foreigners today. The village collectively gasped. Heads turned, necks craned. Even Satya forgot which word he was in the middle of his discourse and froze with his mouth still shaped like a half-pronounced syllable. The fair-skinned man stood there, blinking at the crowd, while the crowd blinked right back. Within seconds, people began drifting towards him as if pulled by an invisible rope. Shopkeepers, children, aunties, goats, and of course, Satya. Inside Satya's mind, a small but dramatic storm was raging. A sharp stab of jealousy stuck as he watched the crowd abandon his lecture mid-syllable. People are unbelievably rude, he grumbled to himself. They ignore the poetry of my words and sprint toward a fair-skinned man, as if beauty comes with a passport. Yet, even as he delivered his noble complaint inside his head, his feet quietly moved towards the held attraction. No doubt he could not take his eyes off him, who was as if glimmering like gold. His fair skin, tall and composed character, inspired everyone to hover around him like a honey bee on a colorful flower for nectar. Finally, the man greeted Satya, said, I'm Eamonn from Ireland. I have recently come to India for work. Very nice to meet you, sir. This was too much for Satya. A warm greetings from him revived the king inside him. He somehow felt superior, as he knew people won't understand the alien's English, and so he could easily use the situation to his own advantage. Satya's mind exploded with possibilities. International recognition. The words rang inside his head like temple bells. He instantly straightened his white kurta, lifted his chin, and adjusted an imaginary crown that existed nowhere except in his glorious imagination. Hugging his dictionary to his chest like a sacred scripture, he stepped forward with the confidence of a man about to change the human civilization forever. The villagers leaned in curiously. Even the children stopped giggling for a moment. Satya cleared his throat importantly. Then, copying Eamonn's calm and sophisticated tone as accurately as possible, he announced, I am Satya, a linguistic genius, the mastermind behind a brand new language created exclusively for this town, such that half of the village already spoke it fluently, or at least loudly, and that the remaining half was still under training. A child in the back shouted, We only scream it! Satya ignored him gracefully. Several villagers nodded despite understanding absolutely nothing. Eamonn looked genuinely impressed. That was all Satya needed. The king inside him awakened completely. With growing confidence, Satya opened his dictionary and began reciting his revolutionary vocabulary, like a professor unveiling ancient wisdom. And thus Satya began uttering those nonsense words, and children began chanting them like an accidental victory to win the heart of the stranger. Satya smiled broadly. The same villagers who once laughed at his language were now chanting his nonsense words with astonishing devotion, all in the desperate hope of impressing the fair-skinned stranger. In that glorious moment, Satya no longer felt mocked. He felt celebrated, as though his language had finally risen beyond the village and was now preparing to conquer the world, or at least one very confused foreigner from Ireland. Like a big entrepreneur, he began to address his audience in front of him once again. Kukaboora, ullupulla, afatari rasgulla gora gora. Haya haya. He meant a stranger as fair as Rasgulla is here in our town. Could be a problem, but we will face it collectively. Eamonn listened carefully to Satya's speech, nodded slowly, and then smiled with genuine admiration. That's incredible, he said warmly. I would love to learn your language properly. The village felt silent. Even the children stopped laughing. Satya froze. For the first time in his life, someone actually wanted to learn his language seriously. A dangerous amount of confidence entered his body. He slowly lifted his chin. Behind him, the children stared in horror because Satya's language had just become an international problem. The story is not finished yet. The next part soon. Stay tuned and take care. Thank you.